Continuation of Brendan Dassey court transcripts reading. Day 1, beginning on page 153, continuation of Kratz questioning of Fassbender. Let's see. Tell us, who are Julie and Brutus? They're members of the Great Lakes Search and Rescue, and Julie is the handler of Brutus. Brutus is one of the dogs I just mentioned, and they are the two that searched the area I just talked about. Now, were you present when the canine handler, that is the human remains handler, Julie Kramer, and Brutus searched the area of Teresa Halbach's RAV4? Yes, I was. Describe your observations for the jury, please. Well, as we were going down that line of cars on the south berm of that property that I had pointed out, actually prior to that, Julie had explained what would happen if Brutus alerted on an area that may contain human remains or blood. And as they were going down that area or that line, and when they reached the RAV4, Brutus clearly, at least to my observations, alerted on that vehicle. And just so the jury's clear, after Brutus, the human remains dog, alerted on the RAV4, it was at that time that the crime lab removed the vehicle. In other words, that it was secured and removed from that location. Is that right? The vehicle was in a secured state to begin with and maintained. It was maintained in that state. The crime lab arrived just after Brutus alerted on that vehicle, and the vehicle was maintained there for probably another 2 hours until we could get the resources at the scene to remove the vehicle. So it was about 2 hours, and then it was removed, yes. All right. Do you know if the vehicle was locked at the scene? Yes, it was. Are there any other exhibits up there that you haven't identified yet? No, sir. I just need to ask that every once in a while, Mr. Fassbender, we're showing you what's been marked for identification as exhibit number 28. Could you tell us what that is, please? This is a photograph of the southeast portion of the Avery salvage yard, and I think more particularly depicting the automobile crusher, and I'll use the pointer on the big screen. I'm pointing at that right now, large orangish yellow piece of machinery. You'll notice right near there is another piece of machinery moving what appears to be a crushed vehicle. That happened when all those crushed vehicles to the south of that crusher were examined and moved to the north side of the crusher. If you just point to exhibit 28 again and show us where the crushed vehicles, that is, after the vehicles were put in the crusher, where were they stored or kept, at least temporarily, on the Avery property? Pointing at the crusher right now, the orangish yellow piece of machinery just to the right of that on the photograph, or to the south of this, that is where approximately 50 plus crushed vehicles were located. And if you could show the jury, please, where Teresa Halbach's vehicle was discovered in relation to that car crusher. Teresa's vehicle would have been up in this area on the south edge of the salvage yard on the other side of the retention pond, and I'm pointing to an area toward the middle right of the photograph. Now, do you know about how far that vehicle was, that is, Teresa's vehicle was from the car crusher? It was about 350 feet. And at least from the intact vehicles, that is, the non-crushed vehicles, was Teresa Halbach's vehicle in a row or in a line of vehicles closest to the car crusher? Does that question make sense? Teresa Halbach's vehicle was in a line of vehicles that it was very near the car crusher, and it had access to the car crusher. All right, let's talk about the crusher itself. Exhibit number 29, tell us what that is, please. That's a photograph of the car crusher that we just saw, which is located in that southeast corner of the Avery salvage yard. To the left of the car crusher, which I'm pointing out right now, to the left of that car crusher, or the north, is the crushed cars. Originally they were to the south, but when we examined each and every crushed car, they were then placed in this area to the north of the car crusher. Before we move forward, tell the jury why it was that you examined and looked in those first 2 days of the search, why you examined every one of those crushed cars. We were looking for Teresa. And at that point, at least on Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, you hadn't found her body yet. Is that correct? That's correct. Before we move too far, I'm showing you exhibit 32. Might give us a better perspective. Can you tell us what that is, please? Again, 32 is an aerial photograph showing the southeast corner of the Avery salvage yard. And on the screen, there's a big box in the lower right-hand corner that's titled Vehicle Crusher. That's where the vehicle crusher was located. And then approximately 60 feet to the southwest is a smaller box where I'm pointing right now. That has a title RAV4 location, and that's where Teresa's vehicle was located. Can you point to that line of cars? You talked about a line of cars that looked like it was close to or waiting to be crushed. Is that a fair characterization? Along the left side of the photograph, I'm pointing to a line of cars which is basically the south edge of the Avery salvage yard, and that is right there, and Teresa's vehicle was located in amongst that line of cars. You said after the crusher crushed the cars, they were in a crushed state. I'm going to show you what's been marked as exhibit number 30. Tell us what that is, please. That is that crushed state that you just mentioned. Often the way my understanding, and I'm not an expert on this, when they crushed the cars, they would place more than one vehicle in that crusher. They crushed 3, 4 vehicles at a time and make somewhat of a sandwich of several vehicles. So what you're looking at there is several vehicles crushed into one item, essentially. All right, I'm going to ask you a bit of a hypothetical, and if you don't feel that you can comment or express an opinion about this, then please tell us that. But if Teresa Halbach's vehicle would have ended up in the middle of one of these sandwiches, would it have been easily identified or located? Well, it would have been very difficult to locate. I showed you a couple of other aerial photographs, and I want to show you exhibit number 33 before going too far. It's going to give the jury a little better understanding or overview of the area. Can you tell us what we're looking at, please? This is an aerial photograph from more of a distance. Right in the center of the photograph, essentially, is the Avery salvage yard that we've been talking about and showing previously. To the left side of the photograph, or the upper left corner, is a highway. That's Highway 147, and then Avery Road right here on the left side of the photograph, and going toward the right or toward the south, that's Avery Road and into the salvage yard. To the south, or the lower side portion of the salvage yard, is a quarry, gravel pit quarry owned by Rodant. To the south of the Avery salvage yard that I'm pointing to right now, or to the right of the Avery salvage yard, is also a quarry owned by Rodant. To the east of the salvage yard is open field. To the northeast of the salvage yard is another quarry owned by Michaels. And to the north of the Avery salvage yard again is open field and farm field. Attorney Kratz. If I may, Your Honor, I am about to shift topics into more specific searches. I'm going to suggest this might be a good time for our afternoon break. The court. Okay, we'll take a 15-minute break, ladies and gentlemen. Just so the jury knows, today we'll go until 5. Usually it's 4:30. There's some give and take in that depending upon where the lawyers are with the various witnesses. All right? Jurors out at 2:37 p.m. The court. Mr. Fremen, do you still want to be heard on that objection? Attorney Fremen. Judge, my objection was simply... The court. Why don't you get to the microphone, please? Thank you. Attorney Fremen. Number 13, my objection was simply I don't have an objection with it being used as a demonstrative aid. I just don't think it should be received as evidence, since there was something similar to purchased later with the detective or the agent afterwards to find something that looked like the jeans. No problem with the state's use of it as a demonstrative aid, but again, I just don't think it should be received as evidence in this case. The court. Well, my understanding is it's principally being used to link up the rivets from what was found to what was known to be owned by the victim. Is that correct? Attorney Kratz. There's been no claim that those are Teresa Halbach's jeans. The court. All right. Attorney Kratz. In fact, just the opposite. They're demonstrative, Judge. The court. For that limited purpose, it's going to be admitted. All right. Recess had at 2:40, reconvened at 3:04. The court. Mr. Kratz, you may proceed. Attorney Kratz. Thank you. Agent Fassbender, let's move on then to responsibilities on the 5th of November. You had mentioned earlier that a search warrant was obtained, and you had spoken at least to this jury about the processing, recovery, and seizure of the SUV. Could you describe for the jurors, please, what was the search plan later, that is, that first day of the 5th of November? Essentially what happened after we got the search warrant is we did an initial search, which sometimes it's described as a protective sweep. Law enforcement, when they execute a search warrant, will do a sweep of the area or buildings that they are going to search to see if there's any people or dangers to law enforcement or anyone else at that time. In this instance, we did do that. We sent out teams to do protective sweeps and to do an initial search immediately to see if we could find Teresa, hopefully find her alive. So we had that initial search that was followed up with dog teams. Primary purpose of the dogs was to go through the salvage yard and through the rows of vehicles to see if they alerted on anything, but the dogs were also utilized in many of the residences and buildings to see if they would alert there. After those searches were done, we go back to the command post and we debrief, and a search or evidence search team was put together. Due to resources and personnel, we had one evidence search team that we utilized that evening, and that search team started out by searching Stephen Avery's trailer that evening. I'm showing you what's been marked as exhibit number 34. Tell us what we're looking at, please. That is a photograph of Stephen Avery's trailer, and to the left of the trailer is his unattached garage. In the foreground and to the right, do you see a burn barrel? Yes, I do. There's a burn barrel with some yellow police tape around it. We're going to hear from Special Agent Heimerl. I think it's tomorrow, but sometime on Tuesday. Excuse me, on Monday, the 7th. Were you aware that that search, or excuse me, that burn barrel was recovered, processed, and found some electronic equipment inside? Yes, it was, on Monday the 7th, November 7th. Tell us what exhibit number 35 is, please. It's another photograph of the front of Stephen Avery's residence trailer and then Stephen Avery's unattached garage. You can see the LP tank in the background between the garage and trailer, and a pickup truck in front of the garage. Now, this trailer of Mr. Avery had 2 entrance doors. Is that your understanding? That 2 primary entrance doors, yes. There was also a patio door in the back. Or the front, or what would be to the front of the trailer entrance doors, are those depicted in exhibit number 36? Yes, they are. And is that being depicted on the large screen as well? Yes. You had mentioned the back of the trailer had a sliding door or an entry location. Exhibit number 37, does that show that part of the trailer as well? Yes, it does. Now, Agent Fassbender, the search of the residence itself, how was that performed and who was that performed by? In other words, how were teams developed to do the searching during this process? When we're searching for evidence on Saturday evening, a team was put together, and this team may be a little different than the initial search teams because they're searching for evidence, and if they find evidence, we want them to be able to process, collect, prepare for transport of that evidence. So when we put that particular team together, we're looking for officers that have been trained and have experience in evidence processing and collection, and that's how that team ultimately got put together. You talked about a search of the and a sweep of the trailer and the garage. I'm showing you exhibit 38. What is that? That's again a viewpoint of Stephen Avery's trailer in the background, his unattached garage in the foreground with his black truck, and we would be facing west taking that picture. Just so the jury can see, I'm going to zoom in a little bit closer. There's a dog to the left of the exhibit. Did you see that? Yes. Were you aware of that dog, and were you aware of the demeanor of that dog? Yes, I was. Describe that for the jury, please. The occasions I had to be around that dog appeared to be very aggressive, pulling on its chain, leaping against the chain, barking and snarling. I kept my distance. Were you made aware, and I think we've heard or will hear some more about this, but did that dog prevent a search area of the back of Stephen Avery's garage, at least for a couple of days of your processing? Yes, it certainly did when we had the dogs there, because the dogs weren't going to go near that dog because of the aggressive nature, and as well as searchers going through that area, steering clear of that area. What is exhibit number 39? 39 is a photograph of the front of Stephen Avery's unattached garage with his pickup truck parked in front of that. And again, this garage was not only swept on the 5th, but was later searched on Sunday the 6th. Is that correct? That's correct. Were you familiar, Agent Fassbender, with the van that Teresa Halbach took photos of on the 31st? Yes. I'm showing you what's been marked as exhibit number 40 so that we can talk about that just briefly. Tell us what we're looking at, please. That is the van, maroon van, I believe a Plymouth Voyager that Barb Taddick had for sale that Stephen had arranged for Teresa to come out and take a photograph of. And that vehicle is what would be directly in front of, or perhaps better stated, between the Avery and the Yonda/Dassey residence. Is that correct? That's correct. In fact, as we look at exhibit number 41, gets a better perception or perspective, at least as far as Barb's trailer. Is that right? Yes. The red trailer that we had talked about, were you able to determine who that trailer had belonged to? Yes. Who is that? Who lived there, or who it was owned by? Who lived there? Stephen Avery. All right. And so the jury can see photos of him. Exhibit 43, is that a picture of his driver's license photograph? Yes, it is. And I'm sorry, that was 42. And exhibit number 43, on the 9th, after he was booked in this case, is that a picture of his booking photo? Yes, it is. On Stephen Avery's property, that is to the rear of his garage area, were you aware of any tires that were located that you determined were later used to fuel a large fire behind Stephen's garage? Yes, there was a pile of tires. I'm showing exhibit number 31. Is that a photograph of those tires? Yes, and that was located on the southwest corner of the yard associated with the residence that Stephen lived in.